Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a topic that is absolutely critical for every property insurer out there: how to properly manage and govern the really sophisticated catastrophe models you're using for rate making. And we're going to focus specifically on severe convective storms, or SCS. With losses from these storms just skyrocketing, regulators are looking closer than ever at how these tools are being used. So, just to set the stage for how big of an issue this has become, let me throw a question out to you. Take a guess. What do you think the total insured loss was from severe convective storms in the U.S. just last year? The answer is a truly staggering $58 billion. And according to Aon, this wasn't just another big number. It was a record-breaking year. I mean, when you are dealing with that level of financial impact, you can bet that every single part of the process, especially your modeling, is going to be put under the microscope. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll touch on why SCS risk is just blowing up. Then, we'll define the regulatory governance challenge that this creates. After that, I'm going to walk you through a practical 4-pillar framework to meet that challenge. And then finally, we'll tie it all back to the real world of getting your rates filed and approved. So, why has this become such a hot-button issue all of a sudden? Well, let's start with the soaring risk of SCS itself. What's really fascinating here is the story the numbers tell. In 2023, we saw 23 separate SCS events in the U.S. that each topped $1 billion in losses. Think about that for a second. It's not one giant hurricane. It's this relentless drumbeat of destructive hail, wind, and tornado events. And these aren't just happening in one part of the country. They're everywhere, turning what we used to call secondary perils into the primary drivers of loss. This trend has now made SCS the single largest driver of insured losses on the entire planet. And, you guessed it, that's why the regulatory focus is intensifying. And that leads us right into our next section, the regulatory governance challenge. What does all this heightened scrutiny actually mean for you day to day? Well, at its core, it's about having a formal process. You've probably heard the term model risk management. And look, this isn't just another piece of corporate jargon. It's a real, structured framework that regulators, guided by folks like the NAIC and Lloyd's, fully expect you to have in place. It's basically your proof that you're using these powerful models appropriately, that you get their limitations, and that you have a documented process for validation and monitoring. And this brings us to a really crucial distinction. Who does what? As the model vendor, look, it's our job to give you a scientifically sound model, clear documentation, and transparent version control. But, and this is so important, as the insurer, you own the specific use of that model. Regulators are not approving our model in a vacuum. They are reviewing your rating plan and how you've decided to integrate our model's outputs into it. And hey, don't just take it from me. This quote from Lloyd's Principles really hits the nail on the head. It makes it crystal clear. You can't just plug and play a third-party model and call it a day. You are expected to critique it, to compare it against your own data, and to use your own expert judgment to make sure it's truly fit for purpose for your specific book of business. So, this is where a unique challenge comes in with a model like ours. See, we don't just hand you one simple score. We provide a powerful toolkit with dozens of different outputs for hail, wind, loss metrics, the whole shebang. Now, that flexibility is a massive advantage for you, but it also means the responsibility is squarely on your shoulders to create, to document, and to defend the specific rating plan you build from that toolkit. Okay, so that's the challenge. The big question is, how do you manage that responsibility without it becoming overwhelming? Well, that brings us right to our third section, where we're going to walk through a practical governance framework we've designed to help you meet this challenge head-on. We've broken the solution down into 4 clear, actionable pillars. We're going to go through each one, but they are, first, establishing clear governance and ownership. Second, having comprehensive and layered documentation. Third, conducting a robust 2-part validation process. And fourth, implementing a solid plan for ongoing monitoring. Let's kick things off with Pillar 1, governance and ownership. This is all about making sure everyone knows who is responsible for what. On your side, that means designating an internal owner or committee for the model, and, really importantly, formally documenting why you chose this model. On our side, we back you up with super rigorous version control and totally transparent change logs, so you always know exactly which version you're on and what's changed between releases. Next up, Pillar 2, layered documentation. We get it. Different people need different levels of detail. So we provide a high-level fact sheet for your execs, a deep dive technical guide for your analysts, and maybe most importantly, what we call the regulator pack. This is a package built specifically for you to pop right into your rate filings. It clearly explains the model's scope, assumptions, and fairness considerations in a way regulators can quickly get their heads around. Pillar 3 is all about a partnership approach to validation. We handle the foundational, scientific validation of the model's components. We benchmark it against industry and research data. Then you perform the insurer-led validation. This is all about checking the model's performance against your specific portfolio. This is where you do those critical reasonability checks, comparing the model's outputs to your actual loss history to confirm it really is fit for purpose for your book. And finally, Pillar 4, ongoing monitoring. Remember, a model is a living tool, not some static report you run once. We give you guidance on the key metrics you should be tracking. Are your policies slowly drifting into different risk tiers over time? How does your actual SCS loss ratio compare to what the model predicted last year? This continuous monitoring creates that essential feedback loop and the documented paper trail that both your internal risk committees and external regulators are dying to see. Okay, let's bring it all home. In our final section, we're going to connect this entire framework to the finish line, getting your rating plan successfully filed and out into the market. This slide shows exactly how it works in the real world. You can take our super granular model outputs, like separate scores for hail and wind, and use your own underwriting expertise to combine them into a simple, elegant tiered structure. Think high, medium, and low risk. From there, you can assign clear, defensible rate factors. This is how you translate all that model sophistication into a rating plan that's actually easy to explain and justify. So at the end of the day, our framework gives you all the pieces you need for a rock-solid filing. You get that clear narrative from our regulator pack, you can reference our validation summaries, and you have a documented process for both your own portfolio checks and your ongoing monitoring. You are not starting from a blank page here. You're building from a complete support package. And that really brings us to the most important takeaway of all. Good governance isn't just about checking a regulatory box. It is not a burden. It is a true competitive advantage. It's what gives you the confidence to use these sophisticated, powerful tools to more accurately price your risk, to stay ahead of the curve, and ultimately to build a more resilient business. So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. In a world with more frequent, more severe, and way more costly storms, the question isn't if your models are going to be scrutinized, but when. So, is your model governance ready for the next storm? Thanks for joining me.